more into that. And that's probably where things are going to start changing even more, kind of around that, because you're going to need a smarter system, a
Yeah.
smarter solution to track that stuff and to be able to turn over access a lot faster than before.
Oh yeah, most
Yeah,
definitely.
especially since like far fewer people will be able to go in and use those amenities at one given time.
Yeah. I
So,
I think in terms of the amenities, things would be a little bit more, I guess, a little bit more strict than it has been in the future because having amenities is just kind of like one of the nice perks, and that people would just kind of like kind of be so casual about, like,
yeah,
well,
exactly.
having this amenity to go use the gym, in your office building or something like that, it's been, I mean, for my own personal account, I used to be able to just go in and not have to like scan in and stuff, or like
Hmm.
not necessarily like have permissions to go in these specific
Right.
areas or whatever, or something that like shows like, hey, I've been here at this time point, or Bert had signed in or something like that.
Yeah.
And I think like moving to the future after this whole like thing with the pandemic, it goes back to like being, a little bit more aware. Employers are going to be a little bit more aware of who's where and who's doing what and who's actually using these different amenities that are set aside for each and everyone. And I feel like at the same time too, with that being said, that I feel like people will appreciate amenities a little bit more, or may actually use them because, working from home and not having those amenities, it's like, hey, well, I didn't have them, and now I have the opportunity to use them, and I have to be, aware of my fellow coworkers who might be using these as well.
Yeah, exactly. And all the more reason, like, sitting in an apartment, a lot of people are now back in their apartments working. And what we also talked about is needing to find that space. And we'll touch a little more on this in another time we've been seeing. But we need the space now more than ever at home to work. And if you're sharing, a space with roommates, or you have children at home, and a spouse as well, that, or partner, what have you, and you're both trying to work, and everyone's trying to work, but sometimes it's just not enough to be like, okay, these are mom and dad's quiet hours, I'm doing this. That's where those meeting spaces or those computer labs or whatever, are going to really come into play, because people are going to need a space.
Yeah.
And maybe this is where also that access control technology is going to start. All the more reason why we need this smart stuff, I'm seeing, is that I think maybe building managers, or builders, construction companies, stuff like that, working with property management, stuff like that. They're probably going to be able to take certain data
Yeah.
from like these pieces of technology and extract it and see like, okay, maybe in our next buildings, maybe we build more meeting rooms,
Yeah.
and like you can kind of use the data and see and what people are going to need more of in the future, and to kind of plan around that. I mean, who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe it won't be like this for much longer, but, or maybe we're gonna, in our apartment buildings, we're gonna even, that's gonna be like one of the key things that we're looking for. Like, how many meeting spaces do they have? How many like little break rooms or computer labs or whatever, they have here? Like, that's gonna probably, maybe that'll start trumping things like, well, do they have pool tables? Do they have
Yeah.
a pool? Like,
Yeah.
who knows? For multifamily stuff like that, and future of stuff in that respect. Like, I see it changing. So I don't know. We'll see as it goes.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect segue to go into like our next point or whatever.
Mhm.
And that is covering like, real estate, and how people are, you know,
Yes.
how people are visualizing, the home and the office as, one place. And, you know, expect, like your space might be used, these different spaces might be something, you'll see like Airbnb for
Mhm.
home offices and stuff like that in hotels.
Yeah.
And I just think that's like, I think that's quite fascinating, because before this whole thing with, the pandemic and working from home, my home was my home. And even though I would have my, 1 or 2 days a week off where I would be working at home, I never like really had this like legit space solely for work, or like, hey, my home is my workstation as well. Yes, sounds good. I say that, but before, the pandemic, COVID-19, I didn't have like actual dedicated space for me to work and, be set up ready to go.
Right.
And it's just fascinating, like to think that so many people, you know, have like may have the same mindset in terms of like, okay, well, this is something that I can do, that I'm comfortable with doing now, being able to function, and having my dogs bark in the background, and my children running around playing, and still being able to handle my work because we had to adapt to the situation that was given to us, being that we're removing ourselves from this space that's set up specifically for us to work with no distractions or little distractions, to being at this place, that has tons of distraction. And then over time, over the months, learning how to work through that. And like the idea of having an Airbnb office space, or Airbnb, kind of hotel space and stuff like that. I think that's pretty likely to happen, more in the future, even after COVID-19, because people still need, or is more aware of the ability to work in these different locations. Just say like, hey, I need an office space that has everything I need to do my work, but I want to work at a beach house. And that's just something that maybe a lot of people didn't think about before all this, but it's definitely on its mind now. What are your thoughts towards that, Mandy?
Yeah, no, I think we have the opportunity now more so than ever. Like, I believe you're fixing up a camper there to
Oh
travel,
yeah.
stuff like that. I mean, but that's also an option too. Like, if you wanted to put on like a smart lock
Oh
or
yeah.
something on that, and set up an Airbnb and like, here's your new workspace, guys. Like, go ahead and and start outfitting that out and having people rent it by the hour or the day. You can
Oh
start.
yeah.
Like, a lot of people can start doing that. And people are going to be able to travel more now, and with that maybe they're going to be able to also offer up their spaces as um, potential places for people to come and work and on top of stay,
Yeah.
if you want to get away. We're talking like Airbnb and hotels. I mean, I saw a few hotels offering like people, I think, what was it? I saw a few offering people to come in for free, or they would get free breakfast or something if people rented out like a room to work. And in Hawaii, did you see? I think this
Um,
is one of the articles I came across when we were digging for some more articles for getting back to work, that a Hawaii program will pay. I'm literally reading the article. Will will pay your airfare to live and work remotely from the islands. So
wow.
it's stuff like that. Like, so someone renting out their space, it's just a simple like things like hotels, like Airbnb. They're gonna want smarter access to be able to, because I think this is gonna open the door for more people to open up their house or
Yep.
their homes for
Yep.
that kind of purpose, and to also just because more people are going to be able to travel now, so now the opportunity's there.
Yeah, and not to get too far away from it, but yeah, like Manny said, I did purchase a little travel trailer with the ideals of having like this mobile workspace. And
Yeah.
when I was tinkering around with it over the break, I definitely thought about like all the different tech that I see, that are in certain workspaces, like being able to have like electronic locks with certain that gives keys to certain people or whatever. Because I know that I'm not gonna be all over the place everywhere at all time. And when I do have my trailer parked somewhere, I do like the idea of being able to grant access to people who might want to be able to like, hey, I want to step away from a little bit and have all the amenities I need to do my work, and the comforts that come along with that. And I
Yeah.
just, that's quite fascinating, because I never thought about doing something like that before, or, the possibilities of even having a workspace, um, a legitimate workspace in this trailer to say.
Now you have the opportunity to do whatever your heart desires. You're not tied down because of work or something.
Oh yeah,
I think
most
a lot of us are
definitely.
not going to be tied down because of work, and I think yeah, that's definitely going to be a catalyst for some change here, and maybe for some people to add on some more side hustles,
Yep, absolutely.
ways of making money and like renting out their spaces. Who knows? We'll see though.
Yeah.
And then our next trend here. So again, this is touching on and maybe a way for us to go a little deeper to it. I don't know how much deeper. But like data, like we've been saying, like data is going to be a must for property technology, commercial real estate technology. Companies will want to see how employees at companies between, I guess, like we talked about between apartment buildings, and of course, actual companies themselves. They're going to want to see how everything's being utilized, whether it's an apartment building being like, okay, do we need to build more, or do we need to build more meeting rooms, more office spaces for people to use because now people want them more than like a gym or something? Or I mean, I kind of doubt that because I still want to use the gym always, but like but I see it, maybe becoming more of an important thing that um properties are going to want to consider in the future. And the other thing being like, just a everyday company, a business being like, okay, how much space do we really need to rent out? If I offer this kind of like, because we're also talking about like the hybrid, not only co-working spaces, but we're seeing like the hybrid dynamics of everything coming in where people come in less days, so they're working remotely 3 days out of the week and coming in 2 days. So maybe companies are going to want to see, like, do I need to invest this much on our office space, like put all this money towards our office space, or are we barely using it? Maybe we open up like some kind of, figure out something where we find some kind of subscription based co-working space or something like that,
Yeah.
and open that up and pay for that instead, and see, trim the fat there and see if we can cut down on expenses and see what works. I don't know. It's just data like that. It's like being able to see it. And I think it's going to play a big role in just the future here in 2021, especially.
Yeah, just in terms of data, Mandy, I think that it's going to be super important,
Mm-hmm.
in terms of, pro tech and cre-tech, and, just how people are like accessing different locations, and employers or building managers being able to like determine what's needed. And I can definitely see, um, if I own the office, I would definitely want to know if I need to expand or if I need to downsize a little bit to
Mm-hmm.
save, more money and stuff like that. And it's good to see like what's actually being used and when things are used, because
Right.
you can determine a lot of engagement. You can increase, you know, um, company morale, just knowing like, hey, everyone generally tends to take a break or a lunch break at this time, and they tend to come back at this time. But
Right.
being able to see that data and being able to see like, how many employers who are like working at home, and how their workload, moves faster because of this, or, you know, or being able to access amenities, and that a lot of people are doing that. But being able to see that data is definitely going to be pivotal, moving forward into the future, because data, basically is king when it comes to like, doing proper adjustments for the future.
Right. And especially, again, of course, like we're going to touch on this because this is also another obvious thing that I meant to mention is contact tracing. Very obvious right now. Like, we still unfortunately have this pandemic going on. And with the unfortunate thing is with people going in and out of workspaces, we get into contact, and some of us may, unbeknownst to us, may have the virus, and
Yep.
may give it to our coworkers. A lot of you could very well just be someone who has it and you have no idea. That exists. And figuring that out, like just knowing who was in a building and when, once they report like, yeah, I tested positive, and figuring out and tracing back and making sure that we know who was in that building and they get tested. It's just another way that we can hopefully nip this thing in the bud, you know? So
Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely.
so that's like another obvious one I meant to mention, but yeah, had to circle back to that one.
Yeah.
And I think we're also kind of getting into our fifth trend here.
Yep. And that is, automation and how automation would be used for granting, access based on data and, streamlining processes
You got it.
a bit better. I think that's like, when we talk about amenities and the new workspace coming into 2021, or the workspace post vaccines and stuff like that. I think automation is definitely gonna play a big key in it, because
Yeah.
now that we're gathering all of this data, we'll be able to, like, I don't know, like, things will be a little bit more automatic in terms of, like, having like access keys and interest points or whatever.
Mhm.
These things and processes that will be set up, ready to go, because we have all this information that we build off from our data that we received, and
Yeah,
we'll be able to, like, grant more permissions to people who are trying to access certain points throughout the day.
right.
What do you think about that, man? What do you think? How do you think automation and how it's going to grant access control to, like, many different facilities and stuff like that? How do you think that's going to, like, be a little bit different coming into 2021?
Well, I can see, just to give a different point of view as well too here, is because
Yeah.
we did touch on this a good amount. I can see it kind of being something also like working around people's schedules.
Yeah.
So automating access instead of people having to go in every day or every
Okay.
week and be like, okay, I want to use this then and then. There might be something where you just kind of like, I want to use it this week, and the system, this week, this day, this hour, or, this set amount of time here. And the system will be smart enough to kind of, you know, send you that access the morning of or something, or the 30 minutes beforehand, and smart enough to also rescind that access to make sure that, again, yeah, you only paid for this amount of time, my friend, so you're going in for this amount of time,
Yeah.
but also I'm keeping track that we know when you were in, we know when you came out, and this also helps. But also like automating that flow of access in, access out, like now you have access, now you don't, kind
Yeah.
of. So I think that'll be a way to automate a lot of things, like, and I'm speaking in terms of co-working spaces. I don't know if I made that clear, but
Yeah.
I'm speaking in terms of co-working spaces, or even like we said, like Airbnbs and stuff like that. People might want to even have like it at it on a schedule,
Yep.
kind of like a work schedule, to go beyond that. So to kind of similarly match the way they once did work in an office.
Yeah.
So that's just my thought there. Like, that would be one way to automate. I'm sure you all at home might be thinking of several others, and feel free to maybe add in there, or, share your thoughts with us in the Q&A, because we are somehow, Bert, unless you wanted to add to that.
Yeah. I think I want to add one last thing to that. When I think about automation and how we're gathering data to, like, add to the automation to make it a little bit more streamlined and stuff like that. I always think about, like, places like, this TV show that I used to watch called Westworld, and how this big giant computer was telling everybody what to do based on their
Yeah.
own data. And
Yeah.
I know that's like, this can be used to help us, but at the same time, it's just something interesting to think about,
Yeah.
because it's based on us and what we do. I don't know.
Hmm.
It's just interesting.
It would be really interesting. No, I love that show. Need to finish it. But and then I guess we gotta kind of wrap this one up here. But of course, huge, 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 given everything that's been going on is the last trend here we're going to touch on, just because, yeah, it is very important. Cybersecurity.
Absolutely.
So, not much more to be said there, because Bert, I hate to speak for you here and correct me if I'm wrong, but neither one of us here are cybersecurity experts. So, but I think that, and like you said, awareness, right? Mindfulness.
Yep.
That right there, I think, is going to be, let's just call mindfulness and awareness trend number 7, because, or at least it's going to coincide with cybersecurity, because we need to be, I think that's going to be a big thing, and companies are going to like reinforce things even harder with cybersecurity, especially since we're all working from home. Like, this is all different. We don't have that wall, that security wall up like we do in offices. We don't have an IT team here at home with us making sure that people aren't hacking into our systems.
Yep.
So I think, yeah, cybersecurity, big one.
I think there'll definitely be like a lot more awareness going in towards, how we do things when we work from home, and in regards of cybersecurity, because, when you think of cybersecurity, even though I'm not like an expert at it, I do know like, hey, cybersecurity, keeping people from like breaking websites or like coming in, stealing data or stealing my information. And, because a lot of us are working from home, we are in a position now of, possibly putting company data, in this vulnerable position, because like you said, we're not working in office behind these firewalls. Mm-hmm. So I think, moving into the future, that's going to be something that employers might have to talk to employees about, in terms of like steps they can do to make sure they don't have to worry about hacks. And, even the employer himself or themselves will have to think about more steps to take to keep them from losing valuable, data or like, very sensitive information. Because we heard about it all last year about the different hacks and companies and stuff like that. So definitely a very important trend, to say the least.
Yeah. And the other thing with roommates too. Roommates listening in, that's another thing. I mean, I've always loved my roommates, and I've always trusted my roommates, but who knows? Sometimes there's places all over the world where people are kind of sitting in with randoms because the rent is so high. So they're just like, yeah, this guy seems reasonable. All right. So that's just like another point right there. It's just, now that we're working from home, it could be as simple as your roommate, So yeah, I think with that, like, man, we kind of ended on like a sour note there, but
I know, but it's all like, I'm glad that we got to go over these different trends or whatever, because it's all going to be like something that we all need to be more aware about moving into, this year. Everyone's hoping that this year will be a whole lot better than last year. It's going to be very hard to top, hopefully not. But yeah, I think it's, even though we ended on that like, kind of sour topic or whatever, but yeah, I mean, it's important to know. It's important, like, it's just important to know. I was about to say, like, we got to know, like, some of the bad things or some of the things that, that are a little bit more vulnerable, to just prevent us from like falling, into traps and stuff like that.
Yes. More mindful. We'll be able to take care of this, be smarter the way we approach things. And I think 2021 will still be a good year. Let's just keep at it, keep our minds open, our hope high, and keep on going at it. Here's to 2021. Bert, this was great. And I think with that, we're going to hand it on over to the Q&A.
Absolutely. All right.
All right. Thanks all.
And that's right.
Woo! Right. Okay, perfect timing, because I got to jump on this call with Lee and Traction Guests.